It is a true pleasure to have Tim Andrews with us. He is the longest living recipient of a xenotransplantation, which is also known as a pig transplant, which was done by eGenesis. And we also have the privilege, excuse me, of Dr. Leo Riella joining us from Massachusetts General Hospital, who performed surgery, and his incredible team with us. I want to thank you guys for joining us because this is a true inspiring story. Honestly, it talks about the medical advancements that have been made. It's really encouraging, I think, for patients around the world, for patients who are on the list, patients that have been transplanted that unfortunately might need a transplant in the future. Just the incredible devotion and time and efforts that science has made, what our future holds, the positivity, the bravery and courage that patients prior to Tim and what Tim has undergone. And really, it's an inspiring story of courage and triumph for those that were willing to undergo this surgery and what Tim has done for the medical community and the transplant community. So I really want to thank Tim and his wife Karen for being here. Again, Dr. Riella for being here to answer some of our pressing questions. Tim for sharing his story with us. Tim, I applaud you for the courage that you had, and guys for tuning in for this really outstanding story. And guys, I'm going to pass it over to Tim to share his story. I'm going to ask him some questions, and we're going to leave time. You guys can put them in the chat. I have Ira and Glenda who are standing by to monitor the chat, so please put your questions in. We'll go over it. And I'm going to ask Tim the first question, and then he's going to answer, and I'm going to come back. So again, if we don't cover the questions that you're curious, feel free to email your questions to me, and I will pass them on to Tim, and we'll get these questions answered to you guys at a later date. And I'm sure Tim would be willing to answer more questions for you later. Tim is an incredible guy and loves to answer questions about his story because he was a willing participant and he's such a sweetheart. And I'm honored to really present this to all of you guys tonight. So thank you again. And Tim, with that first question, because inquiring minds want to know, as the Inquirer used to say. So Tim, what led you to consider xenotransplantation as an option for your end-stage kidney disease?
Being on dialysis for 2 years and hearing that it would be 5 more or so before I came up on the list, or more like 7 years, and it'd be 7 years before I got one.
Or visit nationaldebtrelief.com to get started.
Oh.
I don't know who that is.
National Debt Relief.
Oh, they followed me here. No. Just kidding. Yeah, I was on dialysis, and it was a grim process, and it was a grim forecast that I, probably would not make it to a transplant. So I started looking and reading and what's going on out in the world and what's the medical world doing. I really wanted to know what was going on. And then Richard Slayman came up. And though he didn't live a great time, he was very ill going in, and the pig kidney worked for him. It was his other issues that he had that made it so he didn't last. I said, I can do this. So I talked to my advocate and said, let's go. We're going to all go down and we're going to meet these people. And when I'm going to tell them I'm 100% in. And they had to, my brother-in-law had to wheel me up to Dr. Riela's office. And while I'm saying I'm 100% in, he's looking at me like, you're not ready yet. I said, sir, whatever you ask me to do, I will do for you, because I want to be part of this. And it's not necessarily for me. It was really more for all the other people I saw in dialysis, the people that I saw give up. Joe's dying over dialysis because it was just too much. I said, we've got to do something. And that's why I wanted to be part of this. We got to do something.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's what so many of us are grateful for. It was your courage and your bravery to enter into this trial, right? And I think that kind of like leads into my next question, which was, what were your feelings as you prepared for this transplant that took place on January 25th, which I will add, guys, he's 131 days, the longest survivor now with his xenotransplantation. So I see Nancy, I see you applauding. So I think if we can all give Tim a real round of applause and a shout out, and just, we're all marveling at this. And thank you again to Mass General Hospital and their incredible team. And Tim, we're all rooting and cheering you on and watching this marvel in front of us. And Tim, if you can share with us the name of this incredible
The
little pig.
story of the name of the pig.
Yes, please tell us all.
When I was going into surgery, they said you have to name the pig. Okay, Wilbur. It's the only pig I really know. Personally know the Charlotte's Web pig. And I found out a couple of days later that my pig is a girl. I said, oh, no, we have to change it. So I changed it to Wilma. And then later on, I found out her first name was actually Raphael. That's the name eGenesis gave her. But she's Wilma now, and she's happily at home.
Happily at home. Happily at home. So tell us, what were your feelings as you prepared for January 25th?
Well, first, all of the physical therapy and vaccines and every other thing that I had to speak with every specialist. For a while, I thought the only thing I can relate this to is like Alan Shepard going to space, or John Glenn going to space when I was a kid. They're doing all kinds of stuff to me. Like, what's going on? It was all getting ready. I had vaccines that I didn't know were even vaccines.
Dentists,
Yeah, everybody.
Jim,
Exercise, out of the wheelchair, running into Dr. Rieller's office a month later or a month and a half later saying, I'm ready.
Were you scared? Were you excited? Were you?
Oh, and then we got to the day, and then that's different. But I had talked to Tawana several times before the day. And I told Dr. Riella, I know this is all secret, but I need to talk to somebody who was on the planet doing the thing I'm going to do. And she was very helpful. And she was my mentor. And her pig didn't make it. And now I'm longer than her, but she's happy about that. And I'm happy to carry on her work.
So it was about support, right? And mentorship.
Oh, yeah, support.
Working together. Yeah.
Even though the team is so supportive, it was almost ridiculous. What did I say I was? The Prince of Mass General.
Yeah. Those doctors go home at night.
Yeah, I don't think they go home at night. I know Dr. Riella doesn't.
I think Dr. Riella lives at Mass General, as far as I can tell.
So they're all there to support you, and every inch of the way I'm getting feedback and I'm giving feedback. So it was fantastic. I mean, we can talk about when I came off the surgery bed and I jumped off. You couldn't believe the energy that soared through me. I felt years younger, and I had to tap dance off of the bed because I've tap danced for a number of years, and dance onto the bed to go to the hospital room. I was so happy and I felt so good.
And I think that
Afraid?
that
I just wasn't afraid.
And I think that speaks about like the support system, right? Of
Hmm.
speaking to someone who's been through what you're about to go through. I think that talks about the care and compassion of a transplant center, how important that is. And
Yeah.
then I think, Dr. O, we'll go back to you about maybe the high of, some good medication after a surgery and maybe steroids. We'll come back to you on that at
Well,
the end
yes.
of this.
You can come back to
We'll come back to you on that one at the
it.
end. Um, so I wanna ask, how did it feel knowing that you were gonna make medical history as the fourth person in the world to receive a genetically altered or edited
So
pig
cool, huh? So cool. I don't know what else to say. I'm going to do something that has the possibility to affect humankind. I was like, I'm in. How often do you get a chance in a life to do something for humanity? It just doesn't happen.
Right. Yeah.
And these guys are, the team is the one that's putting it all together.
Yeah.
I'm just there saying, yeah, let's do it. Keep doing it. Keep me going.
Yeah. What's the Nike slogan? Just do it, right? Swoosh.
Yeah, just do it.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean,
You
you are
know,
literally making history.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
My father was in World War II, and he always had that attitude. Well, you got to do what you have to do for the masses.
Yeah.
You're not that important. I'm not that important.
Yeah.
What goes on from here is what's important.
Hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, you're changing history and setting it forward for so many of us.
Mm,
And I think that's why you have so many people here today cheering you on, and we're so grateful for what you did. Really, I mean, we truly are. And I can't thank you enough. The members here can't thank you enough. And the people who will see this on our YouTube channel really appreciate what you did. We're
yep.
really humbled by your bravery and your courage to do this. So we just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, really, truly.
Jen, can I add something?
Yeah.
I think it's so important. You know, Tim, he just didn't just do it. I mean, he was such an important player in all this, right? So it was not only about us, and it was actually mostly about him. And to get ready for a transplant, any transplant, being that a human transplant, if you want to be on your best health status that you can. You want to be healthier, the healthier version of you possible. And I know it's very hard, in particular, say everyone who has some end organ failure that, being healthy, it's just something that it's not on their dictionary. But working hard to improve your strength, to staying active, and at least trying to maintain your health as much as you can, makes a difference, right? And this is because transplant is not an easy path to take, being that a human and even more a pig, and there's so much investment, and there's the resilience because bumps in the road will happen. And unfortunately, either you have an attitude of saying, okay, it's unfortunate and we're going to be, dealing with this now, but we have a light in the end of the tunnel and we'll get through this together. And Tim had been, so resilient throughout this. And it is a very intense process, as Tim was highlighting. And I want to also highlight Karen, and who, was truly, incredible. So her supports, and we always say to all our transplanted patients, it's so important that you have that circle of trust around you. If you have that support system early on, in particular, because it's not easy to go back home with 12, 15 new medications and pills, and trying to recover from an operation and trying to come to the hospital for blood work, a couple of times a week, come to your visit, it is challenging, and it is challenging for all our patients. And so I think we gotta, thank Tim, number one, of course, for trusting on us and really being this hero that I think he is for all of us, from the medical field to the patients, and of course to Karen, Dick, who is brother-in-law, who also being incredible in supporting Tim through all this journey. So we're really, fortunate to have a team, driving xenotransplantation forward with us.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think you're spot on with that. As they say, and I'm going to steal this quote from someone on the Zoom, transplant is a team sport, right?
Mhm.
It really truly is. You need all the moving parts in play, and you need, coordination from every arm that's involved in this, right? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Or else it doesn't
Yep.
work. You're not going to have a positive outcome in the end. So I think that's key. I really truly believe in that wholeheartedly. And I think there are a lot of people on this Zoom that would back me up in that respect. So yeah, yeah,
Indeed.
yeah. Let's see here, Tim. Have you noticed any like unexpected changes or improvements that you didn't think were going to happen after this transplant?
Well, like the little bumps, he said, you have to go with the flow. I started out, like I said, off the surgery table, like guns of fire. And then, it slowed down a little bit. And now it's going back again. I'm getting full of energy and doing things, planting flowers and taking walks and just doing stuff. The surprise is how much I enjoyed doing plants, but doing things that like perennials that last forever, and smelling the roses. It's all that weird stuff that you never had time for that now I'm making time for. A bee comes by and I sit and watch it for 20 minutes. I don't know why, I just am, because, I have the time and I'm here to, it's just beautiful.
Time you never thought you were going to have, or you were worried that you weren't going to have.
Yeah, that was over. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
My life was a dialysis center.
Yeah. Yeah. Appreciating the little things, right? You see how precious life truly is.
And talking to people, but I like to talk to people.
Yeah.
And I talk to a lot of people. And I'm going to continue to talk to people because they got to know it's there. First of all, other people have to know dialysis is there. They just, even if it's somebody close to them, dialysis, oh yeah. And they never come and see them. They don't know what it's about. They just disappear. A lot of your friends and so-called friends, and they just disappear. It's death, and they don't want to hear it, and they don't want to see it. Well, I'm here now screaming in front of people. Yeah, know about it. Do something about it. And I tell all the people that are, how do I get to this point? How do I get one of those? Or no matter what, I need you to stay strong, keep yourself strong. Don't get negative, and survive. Be strong. There is hope out there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's the positivity that you need to keep, that you need to maintain when you go through something like this.
Absolutely, because
Even
you
a
got to be
regular
positive.
transplant. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure, for sure. And that brings, positive outcome, even while you're waiting for that transplant to happen. It's really
Right.
important. Yeah, yeah. Let's see. So my next question for you is, how do you really feel about advancing xenotransplantation research for future patients?
For what kind of patients?
For future patients
Future
coming
patients?
down the
Oh,
road.
I want to put a line up and let's get going. Dr. Riella is more cautious. I'm here in, 5 years, and I'm like, I don't know if we can wait that long. The people I'm talking to are ready to go. if it works, it's good for me. It's going to work way better for some other people, that don't have some of the issues that I had, the diabetes and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I think people are going to be, beating down doors, getting in line for this, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
A game changer. It's truly going to be a game changer in a couple more years, for sure.
I do believe so.
Absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
believed it from the beginning because the common sense of it just drew me in. Oh, this could actually work. And then to be involved in it, I was like, oh, this is awesome. It's like I'm going to science class every day. It's amazing. I really enjoyed being part of it, and I'm still part of it. And we'll be for a year anyways, when we all celebrate me being here for a year.
Yeah, Dr. Riella is giving you a party.
That's what he said.
Yeah. And I hope we're all going to be
Absolutely.
invited, right? We're all going to be invited to that 1-year milestone.
It will be a big party for sure.
Yeah,
Come into Dr. Rielia's house.
no, we better have it in a field somewhere.
We're all going to show up at Mass General, and we're going to have our party hats on. So
Well, I'll have people there that I'll never forget.
what's the message that you want to give out to the community as a whole, worldwide, even as a whole? What would you like to say?
First of all, they got to acknowledge how many people are out there with kidney disease and how big this kidney disease issue is.
Mhm.
People that don't even.
Oh, we lost you, Tim. Hold on. You're muted.
See if I can unmute. Am I back?
Yep, you're back. You're back.
Okay. Yes, all the people out there in the world, and I mean the world. I have been talking to people from everywhere because I said, hey, just, go on Facebook and ask me a question. I'll get to it. Some people have the secret line, like Tawana. She calls me at 2:00 in the morning when she's bored, which is okay. But I've talked to people all over the world, China, everywhere.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah. I think that's important. Education, right, is key.
Yeah,
Yeah. People need to be
yeah,
more
the
aware.
education and getting everybody on board.
Mhm.
There's still a long ways to go in the clinical trial part. I'm sure that Dr. Riella would tell you that. There's a long ways to go. There's a lot of people involved.
Yeah.
Let's just hope we can just keep it going.
Yeah. I
The
think
longer I go, the longer they're going to want to go, isn't it?
education, having resources available to those people in need is critical, and how we as a transplant community can help others is really important, right? And I think you're doing an incredible job with that. And I think we, as a transplant community that are here watching this Zoom, we can all do our part to help those that we know that are on the wait list, and those that are trying to get on the wait list, and those that unfortunately don't have access and don't know how to get on the wait list. We can do our part to help.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Jen,
Yep.
And their own relatives.
that we're getting in a very, very strong range of questions whenever you're ready to
Okay.
throw them out.
Sure. I have just one last question for Tim, and then we'll move on to the questions, so we have plenty of time. Okay. Last one is, what role do you see, Tim, yourself, if any, continuing to play in advancing xenotransplantation for the future, for research?
Well, right now I'm doing what I said I was going to do. Tell people, talk to people, anybody that needs help, that wants help, or just wants to know about it. I'm willing to talk to them. Sometimes my wife thinks it's a little too much because
Anybody who will listen.
anybody that'll listen could be at a gas station pumping gas. Hey, you know what? I got a pig kidney.
Hey, Uber driver, before you get in the car.
Yeah, the Uber driver had to take a picture of me. Can I have a picture? Sure. You know, it's all about talking about it and getting it out there. So, because I meet people who have no idea. No idea what happens at dialysis, no idea what anybody's doing. And the dog's acting up again.
Come on.
She'll go anywhere for peanut butter.
Come here.
Anyways, that's what I'm gonna do.
Oh, Tim, you got muted again.
There it is. I see.
There you
why.
go.
Yeah, fat fingers. Not as fat as they used to be.
That's a good thing. See, no dialysis.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about that.
No. So that's really what I want to do is push this on as much as I can, you know. I'm
Absolutely.
helping with the next person. So we talk to try to ease him from going in. Well, I've eliminated half the world right there.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be secret, you know.
Right. Top secret. We don't want to get you in trouble. We don't want to
I'm
cause any
always in
problems.
trouble. Just us Dr. Riella is like, what are you doing now? Oh, my mouth is running again.
Yeah, we don't want to break any rules or cause any trouble. I don't want to get in any trouble, and we don't want to cause
Okay.
any problems for Dr. Riella. So we'll
I'll
stop
be good.
there.
I'm getting better at being good.
So we'll just say you're continuing to push forward with research for xenotransplantation and sharing your message
Anywhere I
and
can
your
help.
story. Yeah. Well, listen, Tim, I can't honestly thank you enough, and we've got a ton of questions that I think are going to be flooded your way, and we'll let Ira hit you with a bunch of questions that apparently people are eager to pose to you and ask. And honestly, thank you so much for sharing with us and letting us have a sneak peek into your life and this experience and everything. It's been incredible. And like I said, the bravery, the courage that you've had to do this and this life-changing event has been phenomenal, honestly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. And Karen, for your support that you've been there for Tim. You've been a rock, and without caregivers and care partners, most recipients like myself, we would not get through this without you. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart and all my recycled spare parts. Really, truly, thank you for everything that you've done and sticking by Tim's side. Truly.
It's been awesome. It's been a journey. It's been a journey.
I can imagine. I can imagine. Ira and Glenda, do you guys want to pose some of these incredible questions that I'm sure have been flooding through?
Sure, Jen, happy to. And I think I've tried to divide them into some categories. And I think the first group of questions for all of us on the post-transplant side would be better approached by information from Dr. Riella, if you don't mind, Tim.
Not at all.
All kinds of questions.
He's the expert.
All right, good. Dr. Riella, when you were going in this and setting this up, did you see that there was going to have to be any change in the post-transplant immunosuppression regimen rather than the typical cocktail that many of the patients are on, a Tacro, a Ciro, a prednisone, if that's part of your protocol? Is there some additional immunosuppression which is now called for?
Yes, yes. So the anti-rejection combinations that we use in xenotransplantation are slightly different. So the
Great.
core is similar to what most of you may have heard, the tacrolimus, the mycophenolate or myfortic, and the steroids. I think the difference is at the time of transplant, there's some additional medications that are given, and then in the long run, there's an infusion that's also given to try to control the immune system. And the infusion is almost this secret sauce that made a huge difference in all the preclinical studies that were done that had shown that were very important for us to get these kidneys lasting longer. So if you think about that, the usual anti-rejection meds have a certain intensity. When you get a xenotransplant, that's slightly higher than that usual that we use. But of course, that requires more careful monitoring, and this is, I think, the part where Tim has been a champ because it is an intense procedure and process, in particular early on until we are sure that things are going the right direction. So
And that's a very good segue to the question, which I think is most appropriate, or comes right out of this, adding those additional medications and this secret sauce that you've got. Does that require that there is now some additional post-transplant monitoring, blood testing? Will AlloSure be enough to check it out, or what did you have to add to that post-transplant monitoring and rejection uh,
yeah.
maintenance?
Yeah. So Tim got all these additional devices and monitoring tools that are not available in a routine basis. So we can think about, things that can earlier detect rejection. And so there are a number of different tests that are not clinically available, but are run in the research lab while someone is enrolled in a study like this of xenotransplantation. There are also certain things that we do remote monitoring of his heart rhythm to make sure that everything is okay on that perspective, as well as some wearable devices that Tim has been using in order for us to measure his heart rate, measure his blood pressure, measure other changes that may identify any potential threat. So it is a much more intense monitoring than a regular patient we get with some tools and some gadgets that unfortunately are not clinically available, but hopefully in the future we'll be able to expand that.
I know that you can't really generalize about that. Every patient's post-transplant journey is going to be slightly different, but does it seem that Tim and the other three recipients, did they seem to be at the same level of recovery with their numbers, either improved GFR, a better, you were able to lower some of the immunosuppressions at this same level or same time frame as his treatment? Would this kind of patient be on the same track for your looking at tacro and reducing it, or whatever you'd have wanted to with immunosuppression management? The
Well,
question makes sense?
are you comparing to the other patients that got the same xenotransplant?
No,
You're
to a regular
compared
patient,
to
to
a
a
regular patient.
to a
Yeah.
to a deceased donor or a
Yeah.
living donor patient.
So whenever you get a transplant, the first year is always going to be much higher risk, no matter the organ, no matter, the source of that organ. So the first year is going to be the most challenging year because your immune system, your army that defends you against threat is going to be, hyperactive. And so on that initial first year, we usually tend to keep those anti-rejection medications at a higher dose. And
Okay.
then subsequently, after you pass that year, if everything is okay, you're able to start reducing things. So we're still in the early phase with Tim, but we have been able to actually reduce some of his medications since the beginning. And so it is, part science and part art to try to balance out the risks and really try to respond to how Tim is reacting to the medications, right? Any one of us may react differently to individual medications, and finding that right balance of the medications is in part art and in part science. So it's a continuous effort and a teamwork.
There was a very important question, I think, from any of us who are on immunosuppression, which is, do you think that this is going to lead, can people who receive pig xenotransplantations, how will they contribute to any of the immune tolerance programs that are going on for, absolute rejection of or absolute removal of immunosuppression? Are they good
So
candidates for immunosuppression removal long term, if you know that now?
yeah. So right now, the tolerance protocol is a very different protocol than what, majority of patients will receive
Okay.
going through the transplant. So the tolerance protocol that's available right now involves getting a bone marrow transplant, a mini bone marrow transplant, coming from originating the donor, this donor cells as the source of that, combining with a kidney transplant and additional medications. So we have a transplant center. It's actually the only clinical transplant tolerance center in the world that is focused on that. But that's still a small subset of patients that we actually recommend or that we encourage going through that. I think the xenotransplant is in a different bucket. And why? Because there's so many things that we have to work on in terms of ensuring that the kidney works well, that it maintains all the minerals and water at the right balance, and so forth. So rejection, of course, is a concern, but right now, I think adding another component of it, the tolerance, will be too complicated. What we do envision is 10, 15 years down the line that you could potentially produce a donor pig with genetic modifications that makes it even more compatible to the individual, a sort of like a personalized, organ for you. And of course, you may say this is crazy, it will never happen, but with all the tools that currently are available, we do envision 10, 15 years from now, potentially considering that one way for allowing us to reduce anti-rejection medications in the long run. And there are a couple of other different strategies that are being deployed that do not involve as a treatment such as a bone marrow and an organ transplant at the same time that will be very exciting, including, our own immune system has actually a lot of regulatory cells, meaning that there are a lot of generals that actually control our army that fights us against infection and in the case of transplantation with rejection. And there are actually ways for us to use certain drugs to enhance those generals and enhance that regulation. So I think there's, if you ask me, what are one of the greatest barriers of transplantation in general, and one of the greatest barriers is the immunological barrier. So, trying to get an organ that's not yours into your body and trying to tell your immune system not to reject that organ is an extremely high bar and challenge task to do. And so in the future, I think we will be able to deploy some of these strategies to actually re-educate the immune system without requiring as much as anti-rejection medications as we're currently using.
Does when you every post-transplant patient, I believe, can tell you what their match was. They were 0 out of 6 or 1 out of 6 or whatever it is. Is there does HLA matching come into matching a kidney to a xenotransplant to a particular patient?
So very, very similar to humans, there's something called a cross match that many of you may have heard, in which we test if the recipient or the candidate may actually react to the donor cells. And that's because of the presence of antibodies. This is something that's done in humans prior to deciding if we're going to move forward or not. But this is also done when we do the xenotransplant. So we have to test individual patients to make sure they are not reacting to the cells of the donors. In this case, the cells from the donor pig. And we have to demonstrate that there's no reaction in order to move forward. So that's kind of an essential step that's very similar to humans and very important for us to ensure that there's success in the procedure.
Interesting.
Does that mean that pigs are, I don't want to say created, that's not quite the word I'm thinking of, but pigs are grown with unique antibody traits that you then adapt to a
Yeah.
particular human?
Well, they are genetically added to improve the compatibility to us humans, in particular in regards to the immune system. It's not a full compatibility, but we remove a lot of the things that we may react against. So humans may react against the pig. And this was actually, the key aspect that made xenotransplantation suddenly possible. If we were not able to change the genes of the pig, we will not be able to see success in xenotransplantation. And so those genetic changes are crucial to improve that compatibility. But of course, we still require some anti-rejection medications to prevent the full rejection. But if you go back 60 years from now, if you connected a pig kidney into, say, a monkey, these kidneys will be rejected within a minute because of that very hyperacute rejection that we call it.
Okay. Tim, were you introduced to a new kind of informed consent process as a reason to participate in this? Was there some approach that Mass General wanted you to be aware of?
Yes, we spent an hour talking about papers, and then my wife had to sign some too, because if I had something happen to me, she might be involved too. There was a lot of consent stuff and a lot of, we're going into this without knowing. I knew that going in. There was no guarantee. Could have failed at surgery, could fail any day. And they're watching me all the time to see how it's going. That's what I wanted. That's what I signed up for. And I knew it. There wasn't no surprises, no hidden agenda, nothing. I was brought into the light and I learned a lot about the whole process. It was great to be part of that process. And it's great every day, every time I go in and we talk about what about this and what about that. It's just so awesome.
Doctor, are there, as a result of this, is Mass General now, you have a line waiting out the door for people who are interested in this? I mean, are you really seeing that this has led to people really considering it as a future protocol to be considered for curing? Not that you talk about cure, but for curing end-stage renal disease.
Yeah. So what I can say is that we were so surprised by the number of people that had reached out to us after Rick Slayman got his kidney. And we, on one side, we knew that finding an option for dialysis was important. But what we saw with all those messages was how desperate people were and how many were actually not living a good life on dialysis and they're willing to take the risk. Of course, very few are pioneers and heroes like Tim, because there are so many unknowns going through this process, including for us. And we had to, put it on paper, all the potential risks that we know about that could potentially occur at any point. But there are also unknown risks, and there are things that we could not predict that would happen, and we cannot even explain to Tim. And one of the things, of course, was always an infection transmission. Could, getting a gene edited pig cause any infections? And from our scientific side, we knew that these pigs were tested so often and they were so carefully taken care of. Like, we cannot actually walk in a facility where these pigs are. We actually have to shower before, change clothes, and go in, wear a mask, wear gloves. So it's a very, very controlled environment. And they do very frequent testing on those pigs in order to ensure that they were not exposed to any infection throughout the course of their life. And so these things were very important to us to ensure the safety of this procedure. And of course, this is also guided by the FDA. So even though, there's only a handful of patients that got a pig kidney so far, these are very, very regulated processes where the FDA is highly involved. We were in calls with them in a weekly basis. After Tim got his kidney, we continue to communicate on a regular basis, both through email as well as through video calls. And we were sharing everything that we were learning almost live. So it's very different than any research study that you may think about where, the research study happens and or is ongoing and we don't know the results until we get to the end. I think with Rick and with Tim, like we are learning on the go, and our hope is that we are able to share all this as we learn. And Tim was, we were so glad for him and Karen to come to our xenotransplant workshop that just happened this past weekend, where we had over 140 physicians, scientists, everybody in the world working xenotransplantation, some of the founders of the field who started, the field in 1980s. And they were all in the same room, and all the other centers that are actually doing xenotransplantation now were presenting unpublished work, things that are just learning now. And the idea was to really be transparent and see how could we help each other so that we could push forward this xenotransplant so that it wouldn't be only a research protocol as is currently, but really that we can make it a clinical success. And this, level of commitment, from patients like Tim, his loved ones, as well as the community to make it happen, I think it's so rewarding, and I think I'm very encouraged where things are right now.
Yeah, I think that's huge. I think that's amazing. The collaboration that's coming together now amongst, these well-respected institutions is what, gives hope to so many patients moving forward. That's monumental. I think, and
Yeah,
that's what we need to see, this change and this research that's moving ahead in medical advancements, right? It gives all of us hope of what's to come.
yeah.
I know when Tim and I were talking a couple months back, maybe a month or two, we were talking about, Tim had said to me, Jen, I didn't really think about something that dawned on me that, if I had caught a virus, from Wilma or something, I could have been, possibly locked away because this virus, no one would have known it. There might not have been a cure for this virus, and it's things like that you don't think about when you're signing up for something like this trial. And he said, I might not have ever seen my family again. Who knows? Because this was kind of the unknown territory. It was uncharted territory that I was going into. So I think, again, the bravery that he showed is outstanding. It's really incredible that he and Karen went through, his family, and all the prior patients that they were willing to sign up for and to go into. Right? I mean, it really just says what people are willing to do, because dialysis is a horrible life. Yes, there is a lifeline out there when you're attached to this machine, but no one wants to live that way. So, we're incredibly grateful that xenotransplantation has come along. I think, there is still a ways to go, but it is hope, right? That there's something out there and that these developments exist now, and to see this collaboration that went down this past weekend is outstanding. And again, so grateful to you, Dr. Riella, for spending your time with us tonight and answering these questions. And for everyone else participating, I just want to thank you guys. Ira, if there's any other questions out there that we haven't gotten to.
Jen, I will summarize all these questions for you. There are a few other questions. I think in general, Dr. Riella and Tim have answered the big questions about how this fits. And as I think what Glenn and I were asked the question years ago about Xeno a number of years, and we both said, when you're ready, call us. We'll be first in line. So So again, Tim, you're the kind of guy that this field needs. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to be mindful of everyone's time, and Dr. Riella, for giving up an hour of your time to do this. I know your
Pleasure.
time is short. And as Tim said, you live at the hospital.
No, it's my pleasure. We are so grateful to have, partners like Tim, and to have all of you, as a support group. I think this is incredible. So kudos to all of you.
Thank you guys. And we'll get back to you. We'll post some of the answers on the support group page. So if you guys want to tune in and check out the answers, give us a couple of days to get back with the answers. I'd be happy to do that for you guys. So please be sure and check back and give us like maybe 2 or 3 days. We'll answer these questions for you. And I'm sure Tim will also be happy to answer any other questions for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So appreciate you guys tuning in tonight. So thank you
Just
guys
you
so
all.
much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you.
Take
Bye.
good care,
Tim.
guys. Appreciate you all as always.
Thank
Be
you.
safe out
Have a
there.
great night, guys.
Thank
Thank you
you.
again,
Thank you,
Tim.
Dr.
Thanks,
Riella.
Karen, as always.
Great to see you.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
See you Monday, Dr. Riella.
See you Monday. Bye, Jen. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Have a good
guys.
night, guys.
I don't know what you did with that window, but I can't put it down now.